Question 17. When exercising the muscles in one's back, it is important in order to maintain a healthy back to exercise the muscles on opposite sides of the spine equally. After all, balanced muscle development is needed to maintain a healthy back since the muscles on opposite sides of the spine must pull equally in opposing directions to keep the back in proper alignment and protect the spine. All right, so argument or facts. Clearly we have an argument here with the conclusion being the first sentence. That when exercising the muscles in one's back, it is important in order to maintain a healthy back to exercise the muscles on opposite sides of the spine equally. And how do we know that? Well, balanced muscle development is needed to maintain a healthy back since the muscles on opposite sides of the spine must pull equally in opposing directions to keep the back in proper alignment and protect the spine. So that's our premise. Turning our attention to the question stem, which one of the following is an assumption required by the argument? You notice required. Necessary terminology, strengthen with necessary premise question stem. So now looking for an answer choice that not only strengthens, but that is required for this argument to stand. Because again, if a premise is necessary for an argument's conclusion, then without that premise, that conclusion will be destroyed. So turning our attention to A. Muscles on opposite sides of the spine that are equally well developed will be enough to keep the back in proper alignment. And A definitely seems to strengthen, saying these are sufficient to keep the back in proper alignment. But is it necessary? So to negate A, muscles on opposite sides of the spine that are equally well developed will not be enough to keep the back in proper alignment. Okay, fine, but it could help, doesn't destroy the argument, so A would be eliminated. Moving to B. Exercising the muscles on opposite sides of the spine unequally tends to lead to unbalanced muscle development. Does that strengthen? Clearly it does, because the first sentence tells us when exercising the muscles, it's important in order to maintain a healthy back to exercise muscles on opposite sides equally. And why? Because balanced muscle development is needed to maintain a healthy back. So you notice B tells us that if you exercise the muscles on opposite sides of the spine unequally, it will lead to unbalanced muscle development, which is needed to maintain a healthy back. So definitely strengthens. But is it necessary? And when we negate B, exercising the muscles on opposite sides of the spine unequally does not tend to lead to unbalanced muscle development. And what does that do to the argument? You notice it destroys it, because if it doesn't lead to unbalanced muscle development and balanced muscle development is needed to maintain a healthy back, the conclusion that it's important in order to maintain a healthy back to exercise the muscles on opposite sides equally fall apart, because doing it unequally has no problem either. It does not tend to lead to an unbalanced muscle development. So B strengthens and is necessary. So B would be the correct answer. Again, A strengthened but was not necessary. But again, let's make sure, checking the rest of them. C, provided that one exercises the muscles on opposite sides of the spine equally, one will have a generally healthy back. And C tends to strengthen by, again, giving you another reason to exercise the muscles on opposite sides equally. But when we negate C to check to see if it's necessary, even if you exercise the muscles on opposite sides of the spine equally, you might not necessarily have a generally healthy back. Okay, fine, so it's not sufficient for having a generally healthy back, but that doesn't mean it can't help. Same problem in C as we saw in A, so C would be eliminated. Moving to D, if the muscles on opposite sides of the spine are exercised unequally, one's back will be irreparably damaged. And obviously that's going to strengthen this argument that in order to maintain a healthy back, you should exercise the muscles on opposite sides of the spine equally. But when we negate D to make sure that it's necessary, even if the muscles on the opposite sides of the spine are exercised unequally, one's back will not necessarily be irreparably harmed. Okay, fine, but that doesn't tell us anything about what happens when we do exercise them equally. Doesn't do anything to our argument. So D, while it does strengthen, again, is not necessary. So D is out. Moving to E. One should exercise daily to ensure that the muscles on opposite sides of the spine keep the back in proper alignment. And you notice exercising daily. That's not what this argument is about. It is not about frequency of exercise. It's about when you exercise to make sure you do it equally on opposite sides. So E is completely irrelevant, does not strengthen, so E is out.